Today, I'm honored to be joined by Rebekah Keat, better known by family and friends as Beck. She is one of the fastest triathletes of all time. Beck is a 6-time iron distance world champion. She has 5 sub 9-hour finishes in competitions, and at one point, she held the world record, 8 hours and 39 minutes. That's insanity. Originally hailing from Australia, Beck started competing in triathlons at just 16 years old. She started at 16 and competed throughout her entire adult life. And only recently, she retired from competition. Now you can find Beck coaching people through their triathlon journey, doing regular life coaching, and of course, helping out with her wife Siri with Believe Horse Ranch and Rescue. When I finished up my interview with Siri a couple weeks ago, I said, hey, I'd love to interview anyone else that you know that's as high energy as you. And she goes, well, it just so happens I'm married to them. She set up this conversation, and oh my goodness, the two of them are such a pleasure. Some of the most fun that I've had doing podcasting, just so high energy, just so loving. The love that these two exude into the world is just amazing. We had an incredible conversation about Beck's athletic career, what she's doing now, how she set herself up for success in her 20s. Well, in this case, when she was 16, but she set herself up for success at a young age, and now she is absolutely thriving. And of course, Beck plays a huge part in Siri's life, and the journeys that these two have been on are nothing short of incredible. Siri writes all about them in her new book, Finding a Way, which is out now. So exciting. Such an incredible read. You gotta go pick up your own copy. It's available now. Go check out the link down in the show notes. A little disclaimer, I had no idea my camera was out of focus the entire time I was filming. Well, I actually should have, because I hopped on the call and Beck was like, you look a little fuzzy. I was like, no, it's normal. Well, it wasn't normal. Anyway, if you're listening, you have no idea and you don't care anyway. If you're watching on YouTube, just ignore my half of the screen. If you enjoyed today's conversation and you want to see even more incredible conversations going forward, please follow along, leave a rating. It really is the best way to help grow the show. And I can't thank you enough for being a supporter. Thank you for tuning in to the R20s podcast. Without further ado, Beck Keat. So for the listeners of this, I just sent her a picture that I found. It was on one of the Allberry websites that I found it on. And it was a view from 1997. And it was you competing. And you weren't even 20 yet at the time, which I thought was funny. And you had been involved already in doing triathlons. And there are people who are well into their 40s, 50s who would never even dare at their life to do a triathlon. And I just thought it was so funny because just that level of ambition, that level of drive to have that at such a young age is so special. And I just wanted to know, when you were at that age, you're not even 20 yet. Do you know how you would have defined success or defined joy at that time in your life? Was it solely related to athletics and to sports, or were there other focuses in your life at that time?
I think there was two. I would say it's definitely changed now. Of course, winning was really how I had defined myself as a young age. I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but
Yeah.
because then falling short feels like failure. But winning was for sure. Twinning, I was a twin, identical twin. And my identical twin was like better than me at everything. And I found my identity. I found myself in the sport of triathlon. So um, that was really important to me. When it wasn't necessarily winning, it was more just finding a love for the sport and finding a confidence in myself that I hadn't had before. Because my sister beat me at everything. She beat me in every sport except for ball sports. And but yeah, I would say it would the winning side for sure, but also getting finally coming out. I was had a identity, I guess. I was quite nervous as a young kid, and I actually was quite introverted, and I was
Yeah.
struggling a lot with my identity. And I think once that I was able to release that and be open about it, I got a lot more confidence, and for me that was a big win. But
Yeah.
um, I won my first junior world championship when I was what year is that? 1996. So I was 18 years old. It was
Wow.
before that photo. That photo was when I went through puberty. I think I was like, oh my god, I don't even look like an athlete there. But I'll blame puberty on that one. But I won my first junior world championship, and that's where I really found a confidence in myself.
That's awesome. In both regards, being comfortable to come out and to just have that determination that you can win a championship like that at such a young age. Those are both things that are just, I have to applaud you. It's
Thank you.
commendable, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think with a lot of young people today, we get so caught up in social media culture and the numbers. And another one of the numbers is as soon as you turn 20, 21, and you're getting ready to graduate college, especially, is something like money. Absolutely. It starts being
Hmm.
at the forefront.
Hmm.
And I think that's what causes a lot of younger kids to give up on their dreams or heavy ambitions immediately, is that, oh, I don't see how I can get funded monetarily to do this, or there's no monetary benefit out of pursuing my passion like that. with
Mhm.
a sport like triathlon, getting funding is never easy, but it's something that you continue to do nonetheless. Do you think at a young age, since you were already committed to doing triathlons and you were comfortable with the routine and you were used to it, that not having to worry about the monetary side as much, like, do you think you got accustomed to it at a young age and that allows you to keep going? Do you think if you started maybe later on in your career, you would have been like, oh, I don't know, like money's tight, maybe I can't keep going or something like that?
Yeah, I think monetary the side of never really was what drove me. What drove me as a young athlete was just to be better than I can every single day
Yeah.
and the best I can every single day. And I knew that I could that when I won my world championship, I'd only been in the sport for a year and I was like, wow, I'm actually really good at this. I was always, an endurance athlete, but that gave me the confidence and it was never I never really was driven by money. And I think and that was obviously I was brought up with just a lot of love. My family, my
Yeah.
mom were very close, and love was always her number one value was just love and connection and family. And so it was never money. And even though we didn't have a lot of money, she didn't have that scarcity mindset around money, which I think really really helped. Although we definitely were not wealthy. We got joked by the kids at school. We were in a really nice street, but they would call our house a chook pen because it was so small. And I never forget, my mum was so insulted by that, and I was like, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't mind living in a chook pen. It's in a nice street, and we have a beautiful family like
Yeah.
setting." Was just my mum and my twin sisters, so it was always I was more driven by wanting to be the best athlete I could be, or the best me, best self I could be. And I don't know. I feel like these days with social media, thank God we didn't have social media back in the
Yeah.
days. Like I'm 44, we didn't have social media at all. Like I barely even knew what Facebook. I don't think Facebook probably existed. I definitely wasn't on it.
Yeah.
So I didn't have all that vanity metrics to worry about. My self worth came from feeling good about myself, and that did come with winning races, but
Yeah.
also with just small improvements every single day. And my passion was the sport. The sport didn't bring in a lot of money. It was just my drive and determination to be a better me. But I think these days you see all these young kids and they want to make their first $1 million, and then and half of them, even if they did, would probably go bankrupt in the next 12 months. So I think that you have to find something like you're doing right now with your podcast, and you could be making a fortune with your financial job, but
Yeah.
your passion obviously is doing these podcasts. And I think if you can align both at a young age to have your passion and to still be making money, but the focus should be still having something outside of that. And I think giving back to something greater than yourself. And that's why we started our horse rescue. And I always, as a kid, loved animals, and I always gave back to the community, to the young kids coming through. I would turn up to junior events and encourage them. But as I got more mature, I realized I wanted to give back to saving animals. So we started our nonprofit when I was like, I must have been almost like 35 years old. And
Wow.
it's a dream. It's our why now. And that's why I do what I do. It drives you to see you making a difference in these horses and animals and humans' lives. So I would encourage anyone in their 20s to try and find something outside of just wanting the financial freedom. Find something that you're really passionate about, because you'll burn out if you're not living a dream or not doing something parallel alongside with making money. Then you'll burn out and you're going to become resentful, and that's not what you want.
I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. We get so trapped by the vanity, and I'm guilty as charged, honestly. Where I
I am
love
too.
doing the show. Yeah,
100%.
yeah. I do the show all the time, and then I'll see the numbers. I'll be like, oh, really? Only like a couple handful of people watched it, and I just put in all this effort. Meanwhile, I could have been going more heavily into my job or something like that, like you said.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it's not worth it for me. I'd rather have this freedom and this flexibility to explore all these amazing things in the world than just be a one trick pony. And I love what you and Siri do. You're making such an impact on the world. And it really is that reason of your why, where you have to just come to terms with yourself. You have to understand what gets you going and why you want to keep going every single day. And you guys are doing incredible work, absolutely incredible work. Like I can't even, I'm gushing about it already. I gushed about it with Siri too. It's just something so special. And
Yeah.
your why evolves over time, right? So when you're an athlete, the why is very different than at this point of your career. And I want to go back to your career, because you had quite the illustrious career as an athlete. Let me know if I get any of the statistics wrong. You
Okay.
had 5 sub 9 hour finishes in Ironman competitions. Is that
Yep. I
that's
think it might have been
crazy?
6, but yeah.
At one time, you were the world record holder with a time of 8 hours and 39 minutes.
For an Ironman.
That's
Yep.
that's insanity. That is pure insanity. So I didn't tell you this. I was a collegiate rower when I was in
Oh,
school,
cool.
and when I was rowing, we did our 2K races, and that was at a maximum 7 minutes, usually between 6 and 7 minutes.
Yep.
And those are still to this day some of the 6 or 7 most painful minutes of my entire life. Like I literally had to black out in my mind, like just turn my mind off. I couldn't think about anything. It was just so painful. I
Hmm.
can only imagine what it would be like. 8 hours and 39 minutes still sounds like a long time, but in Ironman terms, like that's a world record at the time. When you're doing,
Yeah.
when, yeah,
I have to admit, there was two of us. A girl kind of stole my limelight, but it's okay because she was a four-time world champion.
yeah,
Chrissy Wellington from the UK got the record before me, so she crossed the line, broke the world record at the time was 8:42. She broke it. I was a few minutes late behind her, and I still broke it. So it's kind of like when you see at the Olympics that they say Michael Johnson and whoever else will break the world record at the same time, but one gets gold and silver. It was kind of like that. So I
yeah.
have to admit, like we both broke the world record, but it was set right away as soon as she crossed the line. So technically, we joked that I didn't really break it because she'd already set a new world record. But they claimed it in Germany. They were all over the papers. Two women breaking the world record, and it was a world iron distance because there's one distance which is the 3.8 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer bike, and then a marathon.
Yeah.
And that day, I just felt amazing. There's sometimes days where you have literally have that runner's high, and that was one of those days. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously the last 10K of the marathon was extremely painful, but
Yeah.
that was back when we were allowed to use music while we were running, and I just had like all my favorite artists on like YouTube, Pearl Jam, I actually had Michael Jackson, Pink, like Offspring, like all these awesome songs on my playlist, and I just ran my marathon 2 hours 55 and never looked back. So yeah,
That's
there's not often
crazy.
athletes have days like that where everything goes right, but when it does, you sometimes get a world record. So there you go.
I mean, amazing. But you had such a long career too, and just to be able to do it repeatedly and keep going every single time. My
Mhm.
question is along the lines of when you were doing it, did you love the act of competing? Or when you were in those dark times and you're having to push through, maybe you had to do your own version of a mental blackout. How do you go about pushing through if maybe if you're like, oh, I'm really not enjoying this right now, but you have to keep going, and it can really relate to life in a way too, where there's going to be times where it's going to be difficult and you're going to feel like, oh, I just don't want to keep going right now, but I know that when I get to the light at the end of the tunnel, it's going to be so satisfying, it's going to be so sweet. How would you get yourself through those times? Maybe it wasn't the 8 hours and 39 minute race, maybe it was a more
Right.
difficult one.
Yeah, and it's so much easier to pull out of a race. And I always say to my athletes, like when they pull out, I say, "Did you pull out because you were suffering, like pain wise, or was it an injury, or you just gave up?" And most of the time, sometimes they won't admit it, but it's usually because they just mentally gave up. And
Yeah.
so I always promise. I think I only DNF'd maybe 5 or 6 races out of over 200 in my life,
Wow.
and one or two were I gave up mentally. I think Siri has a similar story. Won the Olympic trials, God help her, but she ended up beating both the Olympic medalists, gold and silver, 2 weeks later. So that was a pretty cool victory. But I think dealing with pulling out or DNFing a race, and you'd be the same. Like with rowing, you can't really do that because there's that lie down Sally, that Australian girl who just lied down. She copped it because she literally stopped rowing. Like she stopped rowing, and she was the joke at the brunt of of so many jokes in Australia. Like she's in a team, and she literally pretends to collapse. I don't know if she actually collapsed. I don't think she did. I think she just gave up. And she's in this team sport, and it's like your row. I think it was like 6 minutes or something. So um, having to face the reality of just giving up, unless it's an injury, but giving up is so much harder to deal with than like it's quitting. You're quitting on you. You're quitting on yourself. You're letting yourself down. You're letting would be letting my sponsors down, my family
Yeah.
down. So in a race, in those dark moments, I would pull from sessions where I just nailed it, like good track sessions or an amazing bike session. And I just think about all the things that got to me to this point and all the people that had been on the journey with me. And that, and I would use that as leverage because it wasn't just letting myself down; it was letting everybody down. And even if I was having a bad day, and there was days where I had really bad days and really bad races, like where I
Yeah.
was almost over up to 10 hours, which is an hour slower. And I just knew that pushing through that actually gave me way more strength and way more um, satisfaction than even races where I won, because I had to push through that mental barrier. And it's the same in life. It prepared me for having to see my wife go through acute myeloid leukemia, almost dying. And I do feel like my athletic career prepared me for getting through anything, because what you do, just it's what you focus on. Like Siri always says, you have to focus on, even if it's just the next step, the next second, the next mile.
Yeah.
For us, it's always like when she was going through her treatment, and so sick, lying in her hospital bed, we just would be thinking of going out for our run and being on the top of our mountain, or just small little steps. We're going home in 3 days, or you're going to see your horse like in 1 week, or your mum's coming to visit you tomorrow. Just little tiny things that bring you joy. We would always try and focus on the positive, even when you're faced with death. And I think that's partly why she got through such a horrific challenge,
Yeah.
because her mindset was everything. She never focused on, why me? I'm sick. I feel disgusting. I'm constantly throwing up. I'm 100 pounds. She got down to, I think it was just over 100 pounds. And we didn't know a few times whether she was going to make it, but she just had that positive mindset. And I think if you can focus on gratitude and being grateful in every moment, no matter where, how dark you are, you've got two arms, two legs, you're breathing. I've got a friend that was just diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and it's a
Oh my
huge
God.
wake up call. Like, may not make it. And it's like, I'm alive, I'm healthy, I'm happy, I'm thriving. I have a body, I can move, I get to exercise, I get to hang out with my horses and my family. And it sometimes gives you a little jolt when you hear news like that with close friends. It's like, it's just a wake up call. So
Yeah.
I think, like Siri's quote, famous one is that, what does she say? She says, fear is the, no, what does she say? Gratitude is the bridge from despair to hope.
Yeah.
And I think amen to that. I think that's so
Absolutely.
powerful.
It's so powerful.
Yep.
And when we were having our conversation, we got really emotional talking about that time in her life,
I
and
do
just
too.
just how impactful. And we talked a lot about her mother being there. We talked a lot about you being there, and just how impactful it was to have you around and really just be her hero at that time. And she talked so much about how she was so afraid that you wouldn't love her anymore, that
Yeah.
you
Crazy.
that it would be different after she went through this treatment. But she really truly realized at that time that you loved her for her, and just how powerful that is to truly give yourself over to somebody else and be there and stick with them by their side. And I can't even imagine what it would be like to have to go through that with somebody that you love so much. And just the strength that you showed during that time too. I know Siri had to show so much strength, but you had to show so much strength too. And
Mhm.
during that time, did it teach you anything new just about love as a whole? Just do you have a change in perspective on what love is after that time? Just truly being there for somebody, truly loving them no matter the circumstances, that maybe any other lesson in your life hadn't taught you to that point.
Oh, definitely. That's such a beautiful question. Thank you.
Yeah,
And I love that you guys got to talk about this. And I think, you talk about unconditional love, but you don't really know what you're saying. Well, I never understood what that meant. Like, unconditional love is through, through good times and bad times. Like you say, when you get married, but there's definitely more of a love on another level when you see someone going through that and like fighting for their life
yeah,
and fighting to be alive for you. And I know that I was a part of the reason why she wanted to continue to live. And we had so much more to do and to give, and horses to save, and humans to save. And when you see someone digging that deep, just to live, it's a whole new level of love.
yeah,
It epitomizes what unconditional love is. It really does. And I know I think the only comparison would be, I don't have kids, but I have my babies, my horses are my babies. And
yeah,
a mother's love for their child would probably be the only comparison. But yeah, there's just a love on another level when you see a human going through something like that. And it only grew our love. And it also, for her, I know she talks about asking for help, and she's never one to ask for help, but she had no choice. She was forced to. And I always, my thing, when I do the Tony Robbins events, we have to go through and we have to say, uh, we have breakthroughs, and I'm always saying I have to be more present, and I have to, yeah, be more present is probably the biggest one. And so I'm always living in the future. I'm always like drive,
Yeah.
drive, drive, grow, 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 do more, do more, do more. And I tell you what, there's nothing like bringing you to your knees, being told your partner's, being diagnosed with this fatal illness that doesn't bring you into being more present. So that was definitely a big one for me, being able to enjoy the small things now in life, the little things, celebrate the little things, and not to postpone joy at any time, no matter, like, for me, joy is just going out and like brushing my horse or walking my
Yeah.
dog. It's not like making $1 million or getting a new $1,000 client. It's just the little things. And I think when you're younger, you don't appreciate as much as you could. And we're all guilty of that. I was totally guilty of that. But I think you have to sometimes take the time to be present and be proud and enjoy the small moments and the small victories and celebrate them.
Yeah.
Celebrate them every day. Yeah.
It really is. It really is the small things. And once you start to appreciate the small things, that's when I think gratitude truly starts to set in. Um,
Amen. Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. And until we can do that, I don't think any of us will ever be truly grateful. And again, I struggle with it all the time, where I'll overlook the smallest of things because one little thing went wrong in my day, and I let that consume my entire day. Um,
Well, I'd be pretty excited if I was you that you had my wife. I'm going to brag, Siri, let me on your podcast. She gets probably 10 requests a week. And she said to me, and I don't do podcasts normally, and she said, "You're going on this show." And I'm like, "Oh, who is he?" She's like, "No, he's an amazing story and he's awesome. You're going on it." And then we missed the first one. So you must be pretty special because Siri's very fussy with who she chooses to be on with. So there's got to be something special there. I'd be
thank you.
celebrating that small joy.
That that that
Won't
really
even
does
do
mean
a
a
podcast
lot.
with me. She won't even do one with me. She got one with you. Oh.
You're gonna make me tear up a little bit. Just I really am just some random dude from New York who just reached out to her one day and she just said yes.
Well, you have beautiful
And
energy, or she wouldn't have said yes. There's something special
yeah,
there for sure.
thank
So
you.
I can't wait to watch that one.
Oh, I'm so excited for it to come out. We had such a good conversation. We touched upon pretty much everything from the book, and the book is really powerful. And what I
Yeah, have you
love
got
most,
it?
I read it before I
Oh,
interviewed her.
oh,
Yeah.
geez, wow! I haven't even read it yet. I've up to
Oh
page
well, I'm not gonna
47.
spoil it. I'm not gonna spoil it.
47. I keep falling asleep at night while I'm reading it. I feel so bad. Like, all my friends have read it except for me. Oh,
It's really powerful stuff. And what I highlighted when I was making the intro, so I do like the intros like separate before I get
okay.
everyone going. So when I was doing the intro, I was talking about it, and I was just kind of going stream of consciousness. And what I said was, it's so powerful that she talks about how she goes through the anecdotes of her life and how they all got her to this point now where she's so in love with life and she's just so filled with joy and she wants to help everybody who's reading the book get to that same point, but she doesn't
Yep.
lay it out like here's the steps 1 through 10. I swear if you follow the steps 1 through 10 you're going to get to the same point as life and me. She doesn't do that. What she does is she says, okay, here are the same prompts that I followed, and now you need to go and apply it to your own life if you want
Mhm.
to get the most out of life and truly appreciate. And I thought that right there was the most special part out of all of it, because there are so many life coaches who will try to preach and dictate their way of thinking and get you to think the same way that they do.
Yes.
And if you're trying to get someone to fit into a mold, you're doing it wrong. And she quotes Michelangelo in the book where she says, I saw the angel in the marble and I set it free, which is basically you just break out of the mold that somebody's put on you or you put on yourself. And that's what she tries to do with other people. And I thought that was so powerful. And the two of you are doing it. You guys are both coaches. You guys are both
Mhm.
saving horses from slaughter. You're seeing something that has been fit into a mold and you're
Mhm.
breaking away from it and you're breaking out of the status quo. Has there been any point during your career as a coach now, or as you've been doing everything with the horses? Again, correct me if I'm wrong. The last time I checked, you have saved 265 horses from slaughter. Is that right? Or
We're
is
at
it more now?
274 now. Yeah.
274. That's insane. That is so
Yeah, it's still
awesome.
not enough though. It's still not enough. And that's why we started
No.
our lobbying education organization. I don't know if Siri
Yeah.
told you about that, the lobbying.
Now, can you go more into that actually? I want
Yeah.
to hear
So
about just how you have to do like just breaking away from what's been set up and how you go about trying to start a new trend.
yeah, so we were saving horses from 2016 onwards, and then in 2019, I think it was 18 or 19, um, we said, this is still happening. There's a loophole in the system. Horse slaughter plants are not open in the US, but there's a loophole where the kill buyers obviously are shipping them to Mexico and Canada.
Yeah.
and there's no law against it. So although it's not permanently banned here, it's not allowed technically because there's no slaughter plants open, because they went and investigated horse slaughter plants, and they saw that the captive bolt that they used to kill horses just is so inhumane, and horses were suffering for minutes, and they brought that footage to court and literally shut down all the slaughter plants, thank God. And so we thought, well, let's see if there's a bill that, federal bill that will end horse slaughter. And there actually was, there still is, and it's been there for 20 years. When we started lobbying, it had been there for like 16 years, and everyone laughed at us and said that bill will never pass. It's never going to pass. We didn't know anything about politics, anything about legislation, anything about like the pushback from the big ag groups or any of the main, pro slaughter groups. We didn't know anything about it, but all we
Yeah.
knew is that this is not right, and this is so inhumane, and how can humans allow this, and in the end love will win. And we
Yeah.
still believe that to this day. The bill was introduced again in Congress just a few weeks ago,
Oh,
and it's the
great.
Save America's Forgotten Equines Act. So we have a lobbying organization, a 501c4. We didn't even know what a nonprofit was or how to create one. We went to Tony Robbins, created our C3, where we save
Yep.
horses. Then we created our C4, a lobbying and education firm, where we've been to Washington, D.C., met with legislators, and the horse slaughter numbers have slowly dropped since we brought massive awareness. I think we reached about 80 million Americans over the last 2 years
Wow.
to bring awareness, because people don't know that the horses are being shipped to slaughter for 3 or 4 days without water and then dismembered alive in a Mexican slaughter plant. It's
Yeah.
horrific. We saw that video, we started saving, and then we're like, we need to pass the legislation. And so it's getting closer and closer and closer. New York just banned it permanently, literally 2 days ago.
Oh, wow.
It's now permanently banned. You cannot ship horses to slaughter from that state, and you permanently can't slaughter in that state. So there's about 5 states now. California, thankfully, is one of them. Texas, New Jersey, New York. Um, there's a fiscal one in Florida as well, but we want to pass it federally. So we're working with these amazing big um, horse groups that are working on a federal ban, and it's sitting right now. It's been introduced to the House. We've got to get it introduced into the Senate, and the horse slaughter numbers have come down from 60,000 to last year was 23,000. We stepped back from the lobbying a little bit, like on our own, because we've joined another group. And unfortunately, the numbers, when we stopped doing all the public service announcements and the public outreach, the numbers have come up again. So we're like, oh God, we need to get back in the game, because it's awareness.
Yeah.
So the numbers have gone up a little bit this year, which is horrible. I think several hundred more have been slaughtered this year than last year, which is just, to us, it's horrific. So
Yeah.
that's something we've been working on really alongside with saving horses, to try and pass this federal ban as well. So it's our heart, it's everything. And if you actually saw, I know, Tom, if you saw a video of what was happening, thankfully it's not, well, you can find, don't anyone look up horse slaughter. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're a horse person, you don't want to see it, but the visuals we have, you will never unsee it. And it made us want to do something right away. So it's how we kind of fell into rescuing horses.
That's just incredible, though. There's so many discussions about, what's a hero, who's a hero. That's heroism to me, is when you see something and you know it's not right, and you don't decide, oh, I don't know anything about politics. I have no idea how I can lobby Congress right now. I have no idea how I can make a change. And you say, I'm going to figure out how I can make a
Yeah,
change.
we had
And
no
then you
idea.
go, and then you go out and you actively do it, and you do it repeatedly, and now you do it to the point where you're able to save horses. And 274, I mean, that's an incredible number. Again, like you said, it's not enough, but it's a pretty
Mm,
good start to get going. And I'm
mm.
sure that by all the stuff that you're doing, you've inspired more people to get going in their own fight to get this done. And
Yeah,
that to me is heroism, is that you took a stand,
thank
and then
you.
you said to yourself that I'm not going to back down because there's barriers that have been set up for me, which is incredible. And now you and Siri have the new ranch going now too, right?
Yeah, we have. So we're working on creating satellite ranches to empower more people to create their own rescue ranches, believe ranch and rescues. So we have 2 in Colorado we're working with, because obviously in Colorado you're still allowed to ship horses to slaughter. Unfortunately, there's kill buyers, they're called, that exist, that go in and outbid you at auction. Although there's perfect homes every week at auction that the horses can go to, these kill buyers will buy them for meat. And if the law passes, they won't exist. But it's really bad in Colorado. It's one of the top states for export. So we have 2 little satellites there that we're working on to try and help them to, create like a framework to save more lives, to adopt more out, to bring awareness, to do their own fundraising. And it's a work in progress. It's right now we're doing a lot of the funding ourselves, but we have to become owners, not operators, and try and empower them more on doing that themselves. And it's a lot of people want to give money to saving horses. People love saving animals. So we're
Yeah.
blessed that we have such an amazing horse community. And they're the same sort of group that help with our legislative moves, where we ask them to call their legislators or email your legislators, because it is inhumane. And I can't believe America actually allows this. It's
It's
barbarous, it's
terrible.
barbarism, it's barbaric. But I'm hoping love wins always, and I think doing the right thing is always the right thing to do. So hopefully people will have a wake up call, in Congress, and they actually vote yes. It went through New York 2 days ago, so who says it can't go through federally, right? Sorry, that's my dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can come on camera and say hi if they want.
Here, Grace. Here, look here. Who's this? Say hello.
Hi, Grace.
So we joke because we have 34 rescue horses, 3 rescue dogs, and a rescue cat.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and we'd have more if my wife had her way. I almost saved chickens this morning at the post office because I could hear little chickens like tweaking, and I said, "There's baby chickens in here," and he goes, "Yeah, they shipped them." I said, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, they post them." I said, "No, no, 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 that's not." He goes, "Yeah, sometimes when it's hot, they just die," and
What?
I'm like, okay, so my next mission now is going to be to stop chickens being
Stop
able to be
chicken.
shipped from the post office. Like, how can that be allowed? Like, oh, they have air and water. I said, you just told me that half the time they die. Like, how can you even allow that? Like, it's just, I can't believe some things that I hear. I'm like, what is happening to this
Oh
world?
my
Like,
gosh.
so Tom, you have a big job. You're young, and there's a lot.
There's
You
a
young
lot
guys
to
coming up,
work on. Yeah.
lots to work on. Like this world, and I feel like it's there's a movement, but it's happening too
Yeah.
slowly when it comes to animals. My passion. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And again, I can't applaud you enough for all the work that you're doing. And love really is what it comes down to. It's something I talked about with Siri too, is the book is Finding a Way. And it's all about how do you go about making the impossible possible. And to me, it's what I told her. I said, it's love, where love is that force in the world that it's unstoppable. And people will love to say, when love and hate come together, it's the unstoppable force, meaning the immovable object. I think love wins every single time.
I
It's just
sure hope
there's
we're right
some
when it comes to
I hope
safety.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something about it that it's undefinable at times. It can be intangible yet so powerful on you. And I really do empathize with those that struggle to find love in their life for another person, for a thing, just something that they can be passionate about. It seems
Mhm.
that at times people might just be reluctant to open themselves up to find love and allow love into their
Yep.
life. But I mean, you've done it with sports, you've done it with your family, you have it with Siri, and now you have it with your horses and all the animals. Why do you think people they go throughout their whole life and they're content almost with never
Mm.
truly allowing themselves to love something? What would your message be to someone if you were coaching them as a life coach? What would your
Mhm.
message be to someone if you're trying to get them to open up and see that if you just allow yourself to go all in with someone or something, it really just changes your world?
Yep, I agree, Tom, and I think me too, as a young athlete, young person, young human. I think being vulnerable is they think it's a weakness, but it's so not a weakness. Being vulnerable, like even opening up, and if you have tears in front of a friend or you're being authentically you,
Yeah,
there's nothing worse than not living an authentic life because you feel like you're living a lie. And I think that vulnerability, there's so much power in vulnerability. And I think a lot of these young guys they think vulnerability is a weakness, and they only
absolutely.
post their good shots, their pretty photos, their nice poses, their expensive cars, their glam shots, their boutique shopping extravaganzas. And it's like, you know, they might have like spilt a hot coffee on themselves like an hour before, or tripped over on the tarmac, like getting out of their car. It's like, show that shit, show the real shit, like be you. Don't be, I think that you have to really do that because everybody, like I noticed that when I started doing social media and I knew nothing about social, like um, people actually love that vulnerability. They love seeing, oh wow, she's only human. I remember we went to a Tony Robbins event, and Siri and I went running the day before, and my wife's a klutz. God bless her and love her. She's a klutz. Like she trips and falls, and She just does funny shit. She hurts herself. Like she just broke her freaking toe when we were dancing in the lounge room. I broke her toe. She hit my foot and broke her freaking. I'm not lying. It's black and blue, broken. Like she's the klutz. Like I don't know if you know that word, but it's Aussie for like she just always is doing something silly. So we're
Yeah.
at this Tony Robbins event, and she's speaking on stage to thousands of people the next day, and this person, I remember, they came up to us and they're like, so we're running and she trips on the gutter and like goes face forward on the ground, right? She falls flat on her face. And I'm laughing. Are you okay, baby? You okay? Because it was funny and silly at the same time. And I pick her up and this person comes over and they go, oh my God, I was just thinking like Siri Lindley is like so positive and so perfect all the time. And then I see you fall over and trip and start laughing. And it made me realize, oh my God, Siri Lindley is normal. She's just a normal person like anyone else. I'm like, yeah, that's my wife. So sometimes I think you maybe even need that much of a wake up call of literally falling flat on
Just
your
falling on your
face.
face.
That's
Yeah.
what some people might need. And that's her. And it's who she is. And she's not embarrassed by it. She's kind of proud of it, which I think is cool. But it probably took her 40 years to get there. So hopefully this podcast helps people get there a little quicker, to
That's
feel,
all it's about. Yeah.
yeah,
Sometimes you just gotta really own falling on your face. I love to laugh at myself when I do.
it's a good quote.
I'm a pretty big klutz. My sister listens to all these, so I try to make fun of her as much as I can whenever I have an
Okay. How old's
opportunity.
your sister?
She's 25, going on 26.
Okay.
She's as big of a klutz as they come. So
She'll love
she
that
will
story.
fall down in public at the most inconvenient times. Like I'll never forget. We were on vacation one time, and we were getting ready to go down to dinner in like the hotel lobby, and she just ate it down like these marble steps in slow
Oh
motion too,
no.
and I can still see her doing it, and it never stops being funny.
Yeah.
Like,
But
it's
marble
moments like,
hurts. Like that, I've fallen down marble steps. That is painful.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Poor thing.
So her name is Morgan. So Morgan, when you get to this part, I'm not sorry that I shared the story. She never likes it when I she never likes it when I call her out. But I'm sure your sister probably is the same way. If you call her out, she'll probably get a little bit angry, but she'll get over
Oh
it.
yeah.
That's how we are with
Yeah.
siblings. But
Yeah, exactly.
it's a beautiful thing. And Siri was the first one who took you to a Tony Robbins event, right? She introduced
She
you to him.
dragged me. We joke about that. I've even told Tony that himself that she dragged me there. I mean, my twin sister was kind of obsessed with him. She had his tapes and everything in her car
Yeah,
because she lived in America for a while when she was studying. So she knew who he was. I had no idea who he was. I remember Googling him, seeing his big white teeth and seeing these people going, ah. I was like, what is this, a cult following or something? Like no shit, that's true. And now looking back, like even my first event, she dragged me there and I was like, I don't want to be here. And they're like high fiving at the door. And I actually, believe it or not, in Siri too, in a setting where she doesn't know people, is quite introverted. I was very introverted and always be walking around like not saying much. And so I'm in this event, people are loud and cheering, dancing. And because some of them, the ones at the front where we were right at the front in the VIP, they had been to many of them. So they had that energy. They knew it was happening. I was just sort of like so uncomfortable. What's going on?
yeah.
Like I'm like a clean freak. So I'm like, people are touching my hands. Ugh. And like I can't dance for shit. So like Siri's a pretty good dancer. She's dancing. My twin sister's the dancer. I've always been, they joke that Beck's just not a dancer. I'm not a dancer. So I wouldn't dance. I'm like standing there going, can we sit down now? And then like day two, I got there late. Like day two, I get there and I'm like actually high five the person on the door rather than ignore them because I didn't want to touch their dirty hand. I high five them and then sanitized. And then I danced a little bit more. And then by day three, I was like all in. We created our for profit, our non profit from that. We signed up, paid $8,000 each to go to Business Mastery. We were all in by the last day, and it changed our life forever. And I don't know if you've been to a Tony Robbins event or any of
Never.
you
It's
young
on the
guys,
bucket list though.
holy cow, like you got to go. And in person, he's doing a UPW. It is better, I have to say. People love the virtual because you can do it from home. But I'm telling you,
Yeah.
you guys, when Dallas tickets are released for August, get your butts there. I wish I had gone in my 20s. It will change your freaking life. The man is my hero. He's incredible. The ticket price, I don't know, it's maybe $800 or $1,000, and it's 5 days. I think four or 5 days fully immersed. It sounds crazy, but it we literally started both our businesses from there, and my entire life changed. My whole identity of what I thought was my identity changed, and my self-confidence improved, and we met amazing people and connected with so many incredible humans. And you have to do it. You got to do it. Yeah,
Wow,
it's
you're
amazing. But
selling me on it now.
look up Dallas UPW when it's released, Tony Robbins. And you need to, Tom, if you can't find a ticket, I will work out a way to get it. If you got to come.
Honestly, you might have me sold right now. Like,
You got to come. You got to bring your sister. You got to bring your sister. You got to do it with your sister. Yeah, but you can't partner together. You got to partner with someone else. But
oh, of
let's
course
get
not.
you and your sister need to get tickets. Like get in early. Like I've got a sales guy I work with, and you'll get a discount. Like just get in there and go. You got to go.
I will be in touch. I'm not even kidding anyway.
Got to do it.
Um,
You got to do it. I actually thought you must have because you seem so mature and so I
oh,
don't know.
thank
I
you.
feel like you're already like half there. So wait till you do one of these. You'll be new person even more.
Well, thank you. I mean, I try to work on emotional intelligence a lot, so that means a lot for you to say that. And
He's
someone like Tony, I mean, he's just special, and he's been special his entire career that he's been doing this, and he's such a force, and that's like the best word I can use. Like love is a force. He
oh,
is a
he
force in the world,
absolutely is.
and
Yep.
just the support that he's shown you. I've seen just how much he's helped you guys out with the ranch and just helping you guys get started with the nonprofit, and that's only a fraction of what he does in the world.
Oh,
It's
I
just
mean, he
so special.
basically, gives a lot. He's so philanthropic. A lot, most of his income goes towards charities, feeding America for a greater good. They don't go to himself. Like he gives everything away, and his wife's the same.
Yeah.
Sage, she's exactly the same. They give and give and give, and that's why they do it. And I think that's why he's so successful because if you hear his story when he was a kid, got kicked out of his apartment. He was really young. It must have been 20 or something, and was living I think in Santa Monica or somewhere here in California, somewhere I can't remember, it was on the beach, but he got kicked out, had no money, had just change in his pocket, and he was even giving away at that age, giving away any money he had, working as a janitor. His story's crazy. Like it's just he's just he grew up from having nothing to being who
Yeah.
he is now, and I think that's what is just so special about him. Like he, even when he had nothing, he was giving it away, and he's still doing that. Well, he has a lot more than nothing now, but he's giving away everything. Yeah,
Still, I wish more people would be like it. It's the resiliency where
yeah,
I can only imagine how many Tony Robbins or just a fraction of Tony Robbins there would be in the world if people just didn't give up.
hmm
But
exactly.
I know there's a lot of people who won't be willing to go through what he had to go through to get to that point.
Yeah, his
And it's a
story.
shame because you never know what you could become. And it really is selling yourself short. And I want to finish off today with actually who who you become because it's one of the phrases that you use when you're coaching. It's not swim, bike, run. It's who you become.
hmm
Again, flashing back to 19-year-old Beck, do you think if she saw you today and she saw what you have become and all the amazing things that you've done, do you think she'd believe it, first of all? Or do you think she would even understand how you got to this point?
I don't think she'd believe it. I really don't. I think that was struggling a lot at that age with self confidence, and I think I just always thought that I would live at home my
Yeah.
whole life, and I didn't think. I thought once I'd finished, I actually had no idea what I was going to do after my sport of triathlon. Tony Robbins is what helped me find what I was passionate about because I was still in the sport at 37. It's quite old for a triathlete, and I went through a lot. My body was breaking down, but my identity was so wrapped up in triathlon still that I hadn't even thought about. Like people would say, "What's next?" I was like, "Oh, I'll just coach. I'm just going to coach." Like that's what most athletes do because they have that identity crisis. Like, "Oh shit, now my sport's done," and they go through deep depression. Even
Yeah.
people like Michael Phelps and Ian Thorpe, like they're completely depressed at some point after their career because they have this high and then they've got nothing because their whole identity is wrapped up in their sport. And I think that's one big thing for if there's any athletes watching that you really do need to start planning. And thank God I went to a Tony Robbins event because completely shifted my mindset on that, on what I thought was what I valued about myself and um, what I thought was important when really it's winning's like such a small fraction of what should be important. But I was still wrapped up in it until I was 37. So yeah, and again, encourage you to go to Tony Robbins. You guys, you got to do it. You got to go to UPW, or if you don't do that, at least read my wife's book and listen
Absolutely.
to Tom's show.
That's an essential is that they gotta check out the book. Did Siri mentioned that Tony is doing a matching for Feeding America with
Yeah,
the book.
God, you've done your homework, mate. You know what? I love that's why I love you, and I think that's maybe why I still love you because we get so many people. they don't know what we've done, which is fine, but I think you should do your homework, you know? Like, you seem to know everything about everything. Like, you even knew how many horses we'd saved. You were 10 off, but that's okay. I'll let get away with that. But, like, you've done your homework, and I appreciate that. And I do remember being interviewed as an athlete when they didn't even know your results, and I was like, "That's insulting. Like, you haven't done
That
your
is insane.
homework," but clearly you
Yeah.
have. So, yeah, he
Thank
wrote the foreword. He hasn't written Tony wrote the foreword to Siri's book, and I know he hasn't written the foreword to any books for many years. He's a dear friend. He's a big donor to our ranch, as is his wife. I can't be remiss without saying that. She's a huge supporter. She's angelic, that woman. And he wrote the foreword, and he's donating $1, and she's matching it to every book that's sold to Feeding America. So I think for Siri, it's not, I mean, she'd love to sell a lot of books, but I think it's more important to her that the people that read it, that it makes a difference. And I
Yeah.
think for people, especially your age, I think it's a little fuel injection, a Kickstarter to just having that mindset, like a champion mindset. It doesn't have to be a winning mindset. It doesn't have to be as an athlete, just as a human being. So
Once again, a massive thank you to Beck for joining me for today. An awesome conversation. And I really hope you gained something out of it. If you enjoyed this conversation and you want to see even more incredible conversations going forward, follow along, leave a rating. It's the best way to help grow the show. I can't thank you enough for being a supporter. Until next time,